Hello. In this clip from our Justia webinar, AI, Legal Developments, Risks, and Benefits, Sarah Anderson explores the definition of artificial intelligence while covering the different types of AI you can find these days. Remember, if you'd like to see more Justia videos on law practice and legal marketing, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
Thank you, Nina. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Anderson, coming to you from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we will go ahead and get started. All right. So today I'm going to be talking to everyone about artificial intelligence, and all of my presentations have two really important components, at least to me. One is I always like to do any kind of theme. I am an elder millennial, so my themes tend to be consistent with that age range. And then I also like to do a end of seminar wrap up. Just sort of some basic things, takeaways. With artificial intelligence, it is such a new area of law that my wrap up is going to be pretty simple, but I think very important based on the case law I'm going to present to you today. So today, my theme with artificial intelligence is it kind of reminds me of the Oregon Trail. I don't know how many of you guys remember the Oregon Trail from, some late 90s, early 2000s computer games. But essentially, for anyone who doesn't know, it was essentially you and some unnamed people are in a wagon and you're crossing, and your desire is to get to, the state of Oregon and cross the final river to get to your new settlement. And you interact with all of these various and unpredictable problems along the way. There's positives to it. I think everyone's favorite part was the hunting, when we got to shoot rabbits and elk and bison or whatever else was out there. And I don't think elk and bison are the same thing, but I'm not completely sure. So I apologize for my lack of animal anatomy awareness. But if you remember the game, there were all these pop-ups that would happen and you would randomly be killed off. It was very draconian, and I think probably would get canceled today if they tried to put it forward. But looks like we have a question. I'm just going to make sure it's not. Okay, good. It's not about not being able to hear me. All right. So one of the things that would pop up was you have died of dysentery or cholera or one of these things, and it would just happen randomly along the way, and it was completely unpredictable. You could have done everything right in the game so far, and they're just randomly going to kill you off. I think I made it across the river like twice in 5 years of playing this game. Maybe I was just really terrible at it. But it's kind of like that with artificial intelligence at the same time, except I would say with artificial intelligence, we're not totally sure where we're going with this, other than we would like to use it to improve business facilities. It's a great investment opportunity for clients, as well as potentially for law firms, in the sense that it allows you to become more efficient. But it is ripe with completely unforeseen, problems that could go wrong with it. So my hope is today that it will at least inform you guys of what could be wrong and things to consider before you implement that tool, or advise clients who are either implementing or developing a tool, or if you are a personal investor, investing in such tools. Okay, this is our agenda for today. I do have a slight surprise for Nina. I did add a slide on data poisoning that you guys will see, but I'm not going to read this to you because I feel like everyone here can read. All right, let's talk about basic AI concepts, because this is something I feel like a lot of people don't always understand, is what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is the combination of two things. The first one is an algorithm. If you saw the movie The Social Network, it's about Mark Zuckerberg in his early days, at Harvard, and his development of Facebook. And you may remember, if you saw the movie, a scene where Eduardo, which is his business partner and later nemesis and co-founder of Facebook, writes a string of really bizarre, characters on the window of the dormitory in the movie. And they actually refer to that later in the movie. Well, what that is it's a command prompt. Essentially, all an algorithm is it tells a computer to do something in sort of an if-then proposition. So if this, then that. And then using that algorithm, the computer will do the next thing. And algorithms can be written in different types of computer code, and they can do all sorts of different things where they trigger another algorithm. But the basic components for AI starts with an algorithm, a command. You want the computer to do something, right? And then the second part is your data set. What do I mean by data set? Data set is any digital library of information, and that information can come in a series of zeros and ones. It can come with, natural language data, kind of like we put in with Westlaw and LexisNexis when we want to search an engine. And it also is tagged, meaning that every piece of data or every data file within the larger data set says, okay, this is data on medicine. This is data on chemistry. This is data on finance. And it'll be tagged. And then within those files, there's additional tags that says information before 2000. Maybe it's based on dates, or it's based on authors or subtopics within a larger category of information. But all artificial intelligence does is take that one data set and take that algorithm and put it together. So when you ask the computer a question, the computer will register that question and apply your question or your instructions to that data set to produce a result. And it is that simple. And I hope everybody, as we're going through this, knows that like I really make an effort to explain these things in a manner that is clear and that you at least feel like you have a comfortable grasp on. Now, I say all of this. I cannot build a data set. I could not possibly tag a data set. All right. But I hope everybody gets the general idea because I feel like it's going to be necessary going forward. So again, you have two components, your algorithm, which is an instruction or command, and a data set. Now, just like everything else, everything depends on the quality of those two assets, the algorithm and the data set. If you have a erroneous algorithm, it's not going to pull the right information from the right place. If you have an algorithm that's only set up to do one thing, it's not going to do other things, even though it may be marketed as such. And then possibly the biggest issue is your data set. Where are you pulling this information from? If you're creating an AI tool based on, that's designed to perform some sort of function of any kind in the medical arena, you do not want all of Google to be your source of data sets. In other words, anything that can come up in response to a Google search will come up in that data set. I don't know about you, but I don't want people who believe they're saving money with the Disney Vacation Club or the people that believe, in the supernatural powers of the Illuminati in my data set. That's not going to give me necessarily, and maybe this is my personal bias, a verifiable data set, right? So you don't want everything to come up on Google because every idiot with a computer, myself included, can put anything on the internet that will then later come up in Google, right? So you want to have a very tightly controlled data set. And unfortunately, what we see now, especially with the recent advent of AI tools and those coming straight to consumer via the internet, is Google is almost always the source of the data set when we use free AI tools. Again, think about the veracity of something. If you have, if you're getting free, fruit at a farmer's market, maybe it's because it's slightly older, right? And it's not the freshest fruit. Whereas if you're paying for it, directly from a farmer that's been cleaned, you might have a better, product coming into your hands. So just like anything, if it's free, be a little wary about the quality of the data set and the actual data that's fueling it, because those together are what form artificial intelligence tools. All right. There are 3 types of artificial intelligence tools broadly. Now, each of these types, if you're a tech nerd, you're going to say, there's all these other different components of it. Gotcha. We're just hitting the top 3 today, just to keep it nice and simple. All right. First one is artificial narrow intelligence, then artificial general intelligence, and artificial super intelligence. Your artificial narrow intelligence is the most basic. It's designed to do one predetermined task, one simple task. That's all it does. It does not allow you to say, hey, read me a poem or, write me a summary. It does one thing that it's been designed to do. I'm going to give you a great example of this. I have a lot of children. You probably see the Spider-Man stuff in the background. I have all boys. And so we are constantly going to the grocery store, right? Well, if you work a lot like I do, you don't want to actually physically go into the grocery store. You want to order your groceries online, most likely, one of the benefits of COVID, and go pick it up. Well, if you're ordering from like a Walmart, right, and they give you the wrong thing, or they charge you for something they didn't deliver, right, or they give you too many of something, or it's wrong, whatever the problem is, they give you expired milk. If you have a problem and you want to address it with Walmart, you generally have 3 options, right? And only one of them sounds decent to me. The first one is you can go to the Walmart and go inside the Walmart. Well, if you wanted to do that, you wouldn't have ordered grocery delivery. The last thing I want to do is go in there, right? That's a time suck. The second thing you do is call Walmart. Probably the only thing worse than going into a Walmart is attempting to speak to someone on the phone at a Walmart. And if anyone from representing Walmart is here, don't get me wrong, I love your company. You get, I would say, a vast majority of my money every year. All right. Or your third option is you can use that little chat bot at the bottom of your screen if you're either in the Walmart app or you're online saying this didn't arrive, right? Well, that chatbot, the initial phases of using that chatbot is an example of artificial narrow intelligence. That chatbot is all it's designed to do is it's going to prompt you based on your history. So it's going to look at your history and ask you what you want to do next. And that's all it's going to do. You're going to say trouble making an order, issue with an existing order, or issue, of some other kind, or my answer is not listed, right? And that prompt is that AI tool's only job is to prompt you. Is when you click a button, it's going to pop up and it's going to give you some options based on your history as a customer. If you've never used a tool before, you're going to get different history or different options than I would, a very repeat customer of Walmart. But that's narrow intelligence. One task. That's all it does. The next one is general intelligence. This is designed to do a whole host of things. So this is really where you're going to see your chat GPT, right? Or, some of the AI models that are being built into Snapchat and Meta or Instagram nowadays. This is artificial and general intelligence. It can do a whole host of things, very wide range of tasks, right? So it can, write you a poem. It can write you a summary. It can tell you who sang a song based on the lyrics. It can do all of these things, and it's pulling from a much larger and very diverse data set. Now, the problem with these types of tools is, again, usually they're free. So your data set is not going to be this very fine-tooth comb selection of proven sources of information, right? But it can do a lot of different things. However, this model, if it wants to work, has to pass what's called the Turing test, and we're going to get into that a little bit later in this presentation. But just remember that term, Turing test. The last one is your artificial super intelligence. This is where the model exceeds the capabilities of the human brain. Now, I would argue, frankly, that an artificial general intelligence tool will exceed my capabilities as a human brain, because if you ask me to write you a poem, you would get roses are red, violets are blue. I don't know what to do. That would be the extent of my poem. But artificial superintelligence is not only exceeds our capabilities, but it also has a memory of past things we've said. And I will say, of the artificial general intelligence tool, I would say those probably have some sort of limited memory as well. So like example would be, and this is not artificial intelligence, but an example of the memory would be when you open your browser and you go to log into something you log into 100 times. And instead of making you re-log in, it automatically logs you in and goes to that site because it has a memory of you being there. That's an example of computerized memory. So your artificial intelligence, super artificial intelligence, not only has a memory of past things you've done, it will use that memory of past things you did to help identify the, response that you're looking for from the data set itself based on what it's seen in the past, right? And it also has the ability to replicate. And that is something that is extremely concerning for a lot of people. And I know when people say, what is replication? It does not mean that two computers bumped ugly and made a baby computer, right? What replicate means is it can self-generate its own competition, or it can compete or create another computer and they compete against each other and both improve as part of that process, kind of creating this positive feedback loop. But in other words, these are the three types. And I would say artificial superintelligence is not something you're going to come into contact with, most likely, I would say, in the next 10 years, unless, of course, you are a member of the CIA or something like that. Okay, this is the slide that's sort of new. I only put it together kind of recently, and I apologize for the crappy graphic on this. I did not have the opportunity to make one that I thought was much better than this. Otherwise, I would have done it myself. But data poisoning is extremely important, and we're going to get into that later in this slideshow. So what is data poisoning? Like I said, all artificial intelligence tools are made up of algorithms and data sets, right? And the data set, depending on what you want this tool to do, right, needs to have verifiable, peer-reviewed information, just kind of like that Doebert standard, right? Well, what some people do is they want to thwart the ability of that data set for whatever reason, and so that they can intentionally skew the results that are produced by the AI training module or the AI module during its training sessions. So I'll give you an example. If I were a bank and I hear that, I'm bank A and I hear that competitor bank B, right, is developing an artificial intelligence tool with another company or is using another company's artificial intelligence tool to quickly go through applicant data for loans, right, and identify, I would say desirable loan candidates and exclude non-desirable loan candidates. And they're able to do it quicker. And let's say this is the early days of 2021 when, mortgage rates were, 2.5%, right? So these banks want to issue as many loans as humanly possible, right? At that point, it was quality or quantity over quality. And, Bank B is not able to compete with me, or excuse me, Bank A, I'm not able to compete with Bank B because I'm still manually reviewing all of those applications, right? And obviously a computer works much faster than humans. So Bank B is crushing the competition. They're generating more loans. They're better able to vet candidates. They are taking away the human element of the job and doing everything based on empirical analyses. And as a result, you've got less default rates. They're generating more business because with the loans, people are opening checking accounts, opening HELOCs, and they're just beating me at my game. So let's say I'm a super nefarious Bank A and I'm mad that I'm losing this deal. I'm going to find out who's generating their tool, or if they're self-generating, I'm going to hire a hacker to hack into their system and find the source of their data set. And I'm intentionally going to manipulate that data set so that Bank B starts getting improper results. And I'm going to try and do it in a way that they don't know about it. And how do I do that? I start inputting false or misleading information. So if I go into Bank B's data set and I see that anyone that had a credit score of less than 650 was not even considered, right, as a positive loan candidate for secondary review, maybe I'm going to lower that. I'm going to say if your credit score is, it has to be only a 590, right, to get in the door. That would be one way, right? So another one would be to modify the existing data sets to go back and say everyone that was qualified as a good candidate, I pass them down and they are no longer as a good candidate. I reverse it. Everyone who was previously excluded, I now go back and say they're included. Or I just delete all their data and the machine it stops functioning altogether. But as a result, I'm manipulating the output. All of a sudden, Bank B is approving loans or issuing loans to less desirable candidates, people with low credit scores, with multiple other, properties, or properties that are moving into default. Or don't have, prior substantial history of employment or verifiable income, or don't have their tax returns. And slowly Bank B is going to issue these loans to less desirable candidates. Their default rates are going to go up. Therefore, their interest rates are going to go up, which means they can't offer the same competitive loans. And slowly but surely, but over time, I'm going to regain my competitive advantage. That is a commercial example of data poisoning, and it is very real. And it is also very much a source of espionage. And we'll get into that as we go through this presentation. All right. So I told you there's three types of artificial intelligence. You've got your narrow, you've got your general, and you've got your super. Well, I actually am not a Star Wars fan, but I did want to give you guys some examples of what I'm talking about. Another example of artificial narrow intelligence would be if you have a more modern model car, like my Honda. And yes, I drive a Honda, but I love it. And I won't drive anything else except maybe a Toyota ever again. I don't care how much money I have. I just love it. But if I get too close to another car and I'm going at a certain rate of speed, it immediately locks my brakes, right? And it tells you, you're about to die. We're going to go ahead and stop this car. Or if I get too close to another item, it goes ahead and starts beeping at me. That's an example in a lot of cases of artificial narrow intelligence. It does one thing. It beeps or locks my brakes based on one other specified task, right? Another one is ChatGPT. We talked about that. That is going to be just your run-of-the-mill, all around. You can ask ChatGPT to do anything. However, I do want to warn you that ChatGPT is kind of like your drunk uncle that you see at large family gatherings, right? He's always confident about his response to whatever question you ask, but he's seldom correct, right? So think about ChatGPT like that. And I know a lot of people like to argue with me, and I'm not insulting the product. I think it's an amazing breakthrough for American technology or world technology. But I will say be very careful in using this because, again, ChatGPT is going to give you an answer even if there's no answer. And at the same time, I know there's a little privacy button on ChatGPT that says, oh, we'll delete your information after a few days. Well, if you believe that, I have a unicorn in my backyard that I would love to sell you. It's only going to cost you $500,000. And then the other example of artificial general intelligence is going to be your natural language processing, which basically means I'm going to type something in one language, and I'm going to ask you to spit it out in another language and fix the grammar and whatnot. And we see a lot of that going on, or the ability to search based on natural language processing. And that has been a huge tool for cyber attackers or cyber criminals because they're able to remove that language barrier that they previously had. So, when you get that email, I would say every day, every week, every month from the Prince of Nigeria, and, they just, they've decided to leave you all of their wealth. Right? When you get that, it used to be, really broken English. You may notice that those emails are actually improving. And then the only example I could really think of, and again, based on very limited knowledge of Star Wars, is R2-D2 for artificial superintelligence. He had a memory. He could recite things. He could outsmart the humans around him and come up with better plans than, some of the other characters in that film. All right. Let's talk about the Turing test and the artificial intelligence process. Remember, I told you this is going to be needed for artificial narrow intelligence and definitely for super. And the Turing test is very similar to any other type of police interrogation. So if you've ever watched Law and Order, which I would say if everyone on here is a lawyer, we've all watched Law and Order. You know that whenever there's a crime, they break, the different people they're going to interrogate into groups, and then they ask them the same questions over, and they see who cracks first and who gets the plea deal. The Turing test is kind of like that with artificial intelligence, right? So after it goes through the development process, which is what do you want to do? What kind of data do you need to have to fuel the set? You've got to develop your algorithm. You've got to test it several times. Before you deploy it, you have to validate it. How do you validate it? Well, it involves three parties. And like I said, it's very similar to a police investigation, or at least the ones portrayed in the movies, because I've been very fortunate not to have been arrested at this point, despite, perhaps deserving an MIP in college at one point. Right? And that is they take the computer and they put it in one room. They take a human being, put it in another room, and then they take the interrogator and they put it in a third room. And the interrogator will submit questions, obviously electronically, to both the computer and the human, and both will generate answers that get fed back to the interrogator. If, upon reviewing those answers, the interrogator cannot determine whether a computer answered or a human answered, the computer is determined the victor in the scenario, and it is considered operational artificial intelligence, obviously also if it's correct. So they'll ask very basic questions. Now, I will say the model is skewed over the years, and I'm not going to blame Generation Alpha or Z or whatever is considered next, but obviously humans were most likely to include a typo. I know my work product is usually fraught with them, and it takes me a while to catch them all. And also we tend to use acronyms, which a computer will use a more natural term. And sometimes they're going to be faster. So it's not a foolproof test, but it is, sort of a generic way that they would validate that the model is in fact operational before deployment for commercial or just for personal use purposes.
Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did enjoy it, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next clip.